Oh look, it's an animated Adora. Here's a look at the Mattel He-Man and the Master Universe cartoon collection She-Ra, the most powerful woman in the universe. These Motu Origins toys are inspired by the original cartoons from the 80s, but with a modern poseability. At 5.5-inch scale with 16 movable joints, these nostalgic Master Universe action figures can match poses from the 1980s episodes or make all new action moves. They have straighter legs, rounder shoulder muscles, and overall more realistic build in their cartoon designs. Each figure comes with an all-new battle accessory tied back to the original content and a mini comic. It'll certainly be an honor to show you guys a new cartoon collection figure, courtesy of the folks over at Mattel. Before we get down to the details on the Princess of Power, let's first get down to the details of just how tall the figure actually stands. To do that, I'm going to rely on this. Let's grab the tape measure. If anything could be said about this line so far, while they have released pretty cartoon-accurate characters, I still feel like the female figures are way too small. They're still relying on Origin-style bodies, and because of that, they come up a little bit short when you compare them along with the males. She-Ra, though, if you include her tiara, is actually 5 3/4 of an inch in height, which, though, translates to a figure that's 14 centimeters tall. Yeah, sure, it's fine if you only plan to display her along with Teela and Evelyn, because all three ladies are using the same mold after all, that you may not notice right away that She-Ra is going to come up a little bit short. It's not really, again, until you start bringing in the male characters like He-Man, for example. Like, She-Ra in the cartoon compared to He-Man should probably be about this high. Instead, though, she's a lot shorter. To compare, like, for example, along with the Origins version of She-Ra, while it may not look, like she's using the same mold, if you actually put the two figures side to side, it's only really by her hair and also the length of her neck that makes her for a much taller figure. The arm placement and the shoulders are exactly the same, as well can be said for the legs. And even though they may have retooled some elements of some of those limbs, it still, though, ultimately means that the figure is going to be way too short when you compare her along with the other cartoon collection figures. Speaking along those lines as well, we can bring in the likes of Mantenna. Don't have yet a Hordak. He's on his way. And while we don't have yet an Adora, we certainly do have a Prince Adam. Here's what she looks like along with him. As for the things that she has that may not be considered as accessories, the first thing that she has will be discarded right after this review. The figure comes included with the paper pamphlets. The pamphlet, again, only just drives home the idea that you can swap the head out, the arms, anything that's basically gray. Detach the lower half of her body from the top half of her body. You can swap them around with other component pieces if you want to come up with your own cartoon collection figure. Whew. The figure also comes included with Horde Invasion. That's the mini comic. We've already seen this comic 2 times already, because we've already had a look at both Ram Man and Mantenna. Sorry, what? You haven't seen the reviews of those? Go feel free and check those out afterwards. She-Ra, though, now completes this entire wave of the cartoon collection figures. Quickly, though, flipping through the pages. Some nice, again, artwork. An oversized head of Hordak. He's not really in the sky floating around, people. That's basically just to simulate that he's evil and he's laughing in the background while his army's invading. Again, nice artwork overall inside. Again, we got some teases of other characters, perhaps, that we may be getting in the cartoon collection. Although I don't think the likes of Squeeze and Snakeface, for example, will find their way into the cartoon collection. I think, if anything, they're just kind of advertising some of the other things that they've done. And a nice overall picture of She-Ra. I've already looked at this comic 2 times before. This is now marking the 3rd time. This will not, though, be thrown in the recycling. No, it's going to be put in the bag with the rest of my mini comics. The figure then comes included with both her shield and the Sword of Protection. The shield is very good. I mean, it looks very much like it does in the cartoon. It's got the ruby stone there in the front, and then, of course, the same stone can be found in the Sword of Protection. I'm going to bring in the Swords of Power that we got included with He-Man. I think this was He-Man's, and I believe this one here was, no, this was He-Man's. This was Prince Adam's. Now, remember that Prince Adam's wasn't as shiny of a finish as He-Man's, but the power swords were exactly the same. Size-wise, you can certainly see that the She-Ra Princess of Power Protection Sword, or Sword of Protection, is a much smaller blade compared to He-Man's. Although I will say, though, I like the colors of She-Ra's so much more. This purple hue that they've added to this, I think would have worked really well had they found a way to incorporate that over to He-Man's, because their sword design, while being very much different from one another, the colors of them are very similar. So I feel like this color would have worked a little bit better with He-Man's. I don't know. What do you think? Anyways, though, the sword, if you look on the back of the figure's body, nowhere to be found a place to store that. So she only really has the option to hold it in her hands, or you're just out of luck. The handle is pretty large, though, but with a little bit of prying of the fingers, you can easily get the blade in there. And now she's got herself the Sword of Protection. As for the shield, which is just over here, while normally a shield would clip on the side of the body, actually what you do instead is just clip this onto her hand. She doesn't come included with a comb. I don't think she actually ever had herself a magical comb in the cartoon, but she does come at least with things that you recognize in the cartoon. I wonder if we'll ever get some of the smaller characters from She-Ra, Princess of Power. Cowl. I would love to get a cowl. But again, like the figure looks good for all intents and purposes. But again, my biggest thing again still continues to be that the figures are small. Let's go ahead and take the shield out of her hand. We'll go ahead and take and remove the sword. We'll put those off to the side. Get her a closer look at their face. I think the face is decent enough that I think it looks enough like the cartoon that I know exactly who the character is. I mean, she doesn't clearly have a mask that comes down over top of her face. That would have been more for the toy. The face is pretty pretty. One thing, though, interesting about She-Ra is that she also has a section to tie off her cape. The cape is basically looped around her neck here, and I feel it draws more attention to the fact that these cartoon collection figures are using a longer neck. When we say look at Teela had a very similar length of neck, and yet I didn't notice it as much on Teela that I noticed it so much more on She-Ra. It's almost the fact that she now has this little ringlet around her neck that it draws more attention to the fact that she's off proportion when it comes to length of this neck. I mean, again, when you're looking at the two figures, they're using the exact same style of bodies. I understand clearly that they've retooled some elements to that. While Teela, for example, would have had the rubber overlaid armor. She-Ra, actually, they just sculpt all of that onto her body. They've also given her as well the skirting. Soft plastic, too. And the cape, for the most part, is pretty soft as well. The hair is sculpted decently, although it's going to cause serious problems when it comes to rotating the head back and forth. We'll get to that more in a moment. The colors, though, for her gauntlets are nice and gold. The gold we also see as well on the tops of her bodice and down below here as well, just in the middle of her abdomen. The gold is painted well here down below, and while you can clearly see like the coloring of the white isn't quite the same as what they painted to what they've molded, it's still pretty close. They've also allotted for a slit on the side. Unfortunately, though, with mine, I'd have to go and look at other reviews of this to see if whether maybe Teela's all across, or if She-Ra's all across the board have all had this. I've got this little nick right here. Could have maybe been the way it came out of the molding press that left behind a little bit of kind of just damaging to the actual mold. You can see it right there. It just bothers me, the fact it's there. It doesn't seem to be on the other side, so it only seems to be plaguing her on one. Down below again, she's got herself the nice shiny boots, matching very much the color that she has there in her gauntlets. It's overall like a nice looking figure. Again, the only issue, and I hate to be the guy that continues just to say the same thing again and again, it's just the fact I feel like the figures are way too small. If you're going to be coming up with like a brand new mold design when it comes to cartoon collection figures, they needed to do the same thing. Follow suit with the female figures. He-Man also uses obviously a clearly bigger body than the Origins version. I feel like there's no reason at all that Mattel simply couldn't have done the same. By sort of phoning in, using some of the cheaper mold options, because they already had produced the Origins bodies for females. To use those molds again, I feel it's sort of a cheap practice. To come up with a brand new mold, I think would have made much more sense, especially if you're looking to scale the two. Anyways, though, for the figure's articulation, She-Ra's head is going to be on a rotation, but good luck rotating all the way around. Just with the length of hair that she has on the back, not to mention the hair that she has in the front. I mean, yeah, you can only move it really back and forth this way. You can move the head down only just a little bit, and you can move it up about that far. The arms rotate easily enough all the way around. It gets a little tight at times. You can also hinge the arms out as well. She does also have a bend in the elbow that also allows the forearm to rotate back and forth. Pretty much similar to the Origins. Hands also, again, rotate all the way around. Because she also has this gauntlet piece that goes over top of it, you'll notice that it gets a little harder to turn her wrist all the way around. But she still does it. And also to note as well that she doesn't have a hinge. Normally the hinge would be right here on the hands. What she does have instead, though, is she has a hinge on the up and down, basically allowing it to... So if she wants to angle the sword a little bit better, if she wants to hold it up in the air, she can do that a little bit better. The waist swivels back and forth. The legs do split out easily enough because, again, we've got the slits there on the sides. There is a little bit of swivel at the top. I don't think it's more swiveling. I think it's just the way it's been assembled. Just single hinge in the knee. A little tight on my figure. Swivel down below here in the legs. Swiveled again down below here for the boots. Ankle pivot up and down. Ankle rocker there as well. And the figure does also have conveniently placed, like they were supposed to be there, pegels on the bottoms of her heels. Overall, though, like the look of She-Ra is nice. But again, I can't get past the fact that the figures are way too small. I know how many times I've already said in this review. I mean, again, it's fine if you have the figure displayed on its own. But what's the likelihood that you're not going to be picking up She-Ra had you not already been picking up the cartoon collection He-Man? And again, to compare the two, well, again, she's not as noticeable when you compare, say, with the likes of Teela, because, again, they're just using the same body. It becomes ever more apparent that they really need to tool up the size. I mean, again, you could have used the same body, maybe lengthened the legs or maybe lengthened the torso. I feel like they could have used something from the Origins bodies that they already have and then just retool something to give them a little bit more height. It seems almost like the case, like what they've done is they've lengthened the neck to compensate some of the height. So again, like while you're looking at them, you may think, oh no, like the cartoon collection is clearly taller. They're only clearly taller because of the length of their neck that they've incorporated to the brand new figures. Much like the cartoon's transformation, I've got She-Ra zoning out as she's looking at the sword. I always found that was a little funny. The thing that was interesting about She-Ra's first transformation when she's introduced to He-Man is that the sword of power and the sword of protection are the exact same size. And yet, though, the moment she wields it, it seems to shrink in size. The color, though, for the sword, I think is the better color that they should have went with when they came to the cartoon collection He-Man. His sword, though, was a little much darker of a gray. I actually kind of like the bluish tint to the gray that they've used for hers. It still has the stone, though, in the middle. It's not a ruby stone. I know I mentioned in the review it was a ruby stone. Clearly, rubies are red. This is not a red stone. There's no place to also holster the sword, so that's one thing, though, that her brother has over top of She-Ra, that he has at least a place to store his sword. She-Ra has to always kind of hold it in her hand, or it has to be put away in a bag. I'm not sure if I'm going to have her displayed always with the shield. I feel like I would want to have one or the other. The sword is probably more the recognizable thing. The sword always then turned into things, so I think I'm going to have only really displayed with that. But I think for the most part, they've done a well enough job here for She-Ra. The only, again, criticism, as I said already, how many times in this review, is the size of the figure. What do you guys, though, think of She-Ra? Let me know down below in the comment section. If you guys are also interested to get this one for yourself, I haven't had any luck. I mean, first of all, good luck as a Canadian collector to have any chance to find these in the wild. No go. I had a better go, though, of ordering this one from Entertainment Earth. And as far as I know, she is still in stock over there. You can use the link that's provided down below in the video description. The link will not only take you to She-Ra, but that link will also save you. Shh, don't tell everybody. It'll also save you 10% on anything that's currently in stock. In the meantime, if you guys did enjoy this video, do it a solid, throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. Hit that subscribe, yeah? Turn on that bell, okay. But the most important thing, come back. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.